everyone, and welcome to the Weekly Report. I'm John Bacala with the Neighborhoods Department, and here are the top 3 stories you need to know about this week. A new grant program, Rebuild KC, is now accepting applications from neighborhoods and community groups for projects including infrastructure improvements, healthy community programs, affordable housing solutions, and more. Using funding from the American Rescue Plan Act, the program will select projects that improve neighborhood quality and livability and/or will support an activity advancing economic development. Groups must apply by February 22nd. Get more info at kcmo.gov/rebuildkc. Kansas City is exploring multiple ways to address concerns about how to provide shelter and care for the unhoused population. Over the last year, the city has been working with local agencies to provide shelter during extreme weather, developing ways to provide affordable housing, and working on how to best serve the people who are most in need. Learn more about what is being done during the impending cold weather months ahead by visiting kcmo.gov/housing. The KC Streetcar expansion is underway. The first load of steel track was delivered a few weeks ago, and now the welding of track has begun. Work on utilities has been underway for the past year along Main Street. The new track installation begins in mid-March. The streetcar extension will run south from Union Station to UMKC. Stay up to date with the project at buildkcstreetcar.com. Thank you for watching the Weekly Report. I'm John Bacala. Now stay tuned for videos on all these subjects, plus the Mayor's State of the City address. A new tree, maybe a new park bench, or how about a new community center? Kansas City wants to know what you think would make your neighborhood better.
It is really wide open. We are opening the door here so that we can get a feel for what the interest levels are of the community.
Kansas City just launched the Rebuild KC Neighborhood Grants Program. It will use primarily American Rescue Plan Act funding to finance neighborhood improvements. Any Kansas City resident is welcome to apply, and there are no restrictions on a project's size, but it must provide a benefit to the community.
It just gives neighborhoods and community organizations, community groups, even individuals for that matter, the opportunity to express their exact needs, what their local, ground level, grassroots needs are in their community.
This program can also consider bigger projects, such as affordable housing creation and infrastructure. Applications will be accepted online until February 22nd. After that, representatives from various city departments will review the proposed projects, and work could begin as early as late spring.
We want this to be a neighborhood level program that really strengthens the partnerships between neighborhoods, between one neighborhood to another, between a neighborhood and the city, between the community and the city and everything else.
For more information and to submit your idea, go to kcmo.gov/rebuildkc.
Whether it's 0 degrees or 30 degrees, the winter is especially hard for those who don't have a home. That's why the city of Kansas City is so focused on providing shelter and housing for the unhoused.
We've seen this urgent crisis. It's almost like it's a pandemic of its own, homelessness and housing issues here in Kansas City. And if we're going to do anything to serve the people that are most in need in this city, we've got to think creatively, and we've got to take very aggressive and proactive action here.
One of those steps forward is the LOTUS Care House. The city allocated $400,000 to transform the former Days Inn near Linwood and Van Brunt Boulevard into a navigation center. It provides single-room transitional housing with full supportive wraparound services.
We've had a number of folks who we provide interim housing here move on to stable housing who had been chronically homeless or were in a place where if they didn't have any interim housing, we might not have been able to find them and connect them with the housing that they were on the path towards.
This is just one of many solutions Kansas City is working on. Among the others, allocating $12.5 million to the city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund to encourage the creation of more affordable housing units, distributing about $16 million in emergency rental assistance funds to nearly 4,000 households, exploring converting nearly 3,000 vacant lots and homes owned by the city's land bank into affordable housing, and enacting an extreme weather plan that activates when the daytime high is below 32 degrees or the overnight low is less than 20 degrees.
And what happens when the plan goes into effect is we immediately open the Emergency Operations Center and begin a hotline system between the city and our service partner providers to make sure there are shelter beds available. We track the number of shelter beds available.
Another program is the Heart Cart. These storage carts let people safely secure their personal belongings. Deanna is currently unhoused and says these carts will make a big difference.
They're a great idea because it's safe. Our stuff is going to finally be safe to where we can leave our tents.
These programs are some of the many facets of a larger vision the city is working on to address homelessness and housing insecurity. And thanks to partnerships, the work is only just getting started.
The most important thing is working with the city, working with the community providers. All of us really working together is what's going to make the navigation successful and helping people get off the streets and into stable housing.
The goal is to end homelessness, and Kansas City will continue to be creative and aggressive with solutions to help the unhoused. For more information on this effort, please visit kcmo.gov/housing.
For months, drivers have maneuvered Main Street through orange cones, lane changes, and lots of construction equipment. It's all to lay the groundwork for the KC Streetcar expansion.
We anticipate the start of the rail installation about mid-March. Of course, we'll be doing prep work in that segment between Pershing and 27th Street.
The project reached a new milestone. In late January, workers started welding rail sections together to get ready for installation.
One of the most exciting things about the Main Street extension is connecting our downtown to our two major universities.
The new line will stretch south from Union Station to 51st and Brookside near UMKC.
The entire stretch of the Main Street corridor will allow our college and university students to live along the corridor, attend classes, and get to their campus with a zero fare.
The extended route is expected to open to riders in 2025, but that won't be the end of the line. Leaders want to go even farther.
At the same time, we also have the riverfront extension, which is going to extend our existing system from the River Market down to Berkeley Park on the riverfront. The city, with its partners KCATA and the KC Streetcar Authority, are also getting ready to start a study for an east-west corridor for future consideration.
It is good to be with you, Kansas City, for my third State of the City address. I'm joining you tonight from Southeast High School in Kansas City's 5th District, just outside of Swope Park. Southeast has always meant a lot to me. It's the school that educated my mother, much of my family, and it feels like dozens of Kansas Cityans I meet each and every day. Today, Southeast High School is a key part of the resurgence of Kansas City Public Schools. I stand this evening in Southeast's Restorative Justice Room, a space where students and their mentors every day gather to provide and receive support, particularly in times of real need. And what a time to celebrate Kansas City Public Schools. Through the leadership of its board and Superintendent Mark Bedell, the district, for the first time in my adulthood and in the lives of many of our young learners, has returned to full accreditation. While the accomplishment is being recognized in 2022, it is the result of years of dedication by teachers, coaches, staff members, counselors, parents, grandparents, and our kids, who have never given up on our families, our neighborhoods, our city, and themselves. Things can change for the better. Although the city is a complex place with about 7,000 employees working at City Hall, City Hall's job and my job are straightforward: to deliver basic services like snow removal and trash pickup at a high level not seen for generations, to help spur accessible and affordable housing opportunities for all Kansas Cityans, to welcome businesses and to clear red tape, to be serious about making all our neighborhoods safer, and to pay our workers fair wages to make all of that possible. I start with our need to pay our workers better. I grew up the child of a government worker. My mother raised 3 kids by herself, working hard and rarely seeing the compensation that she or her colleagues deserved. Years without pay raises, reductions in benefits, and a government that too often took their labor for granted. The time for that status quo at City Hall has ended. Since I became mayor, our new contract with firefighters ensured increased pay at all levels for Kansas City's bravest. In recent months, I've also secured funding and commitments to provide pay increases this year to all of Kansas City's police officers so they can support themselves and their families as they put their lives on the line each day to support all of us. Now it is time that all city employees receive fair wages for their hard work. Kansas City cannot run without the women and men picking up our trash, maintaining our sewers, cleaning our parks, answering 911 calls, standing on the other side of this camera, and inspecting our dangerous buildings. And this year we have set aside funding to ensure every Kansas City worker will receive a raise, including a 4% pay raise for most of our workers, to ensure that all know that we value and appreciate them and their families. Fair pay for our workforce is one key part of how we will continue to improve basic service delivery for Kansas City residents. After the last snowstorm, I was proud to hear from people who said they saw a snowplow on their street for the first time in 10 or 20 years. When I ran for mayor, I talked a lot about basic services, fixing our potholes, fixing our roads, and the services that you should be able to expect. I'm proud of the strides we've made. In addition to enhanced snow removal, we launched Kansas City's Summer of Street Resurfacing. You likely saw the construction all around town, as from August to November alone, our Kansas City Public Works Department resurfaced 137 lane miles, repaired 272 Kansas City streets, improved coordination with contractors and utility companies to ensure that our professionally paved streets weren't weeks later torn up for utility work. And over the last 2 years, we've made important investments in road resurfacing, expanded trash collection, and Kansas City's first in the nation Zero Fare Transit Initiative. Work to expand the Kansas City Streetcar to UMKC and to complete a new terminal at KCI is well underway and continues to proceed on time and on budget, with more than 120 minority and women-owned businesses participating in our project. But there is still critical work to be done to rebuild our roads, our bridges, and our sewers, to increase access to public transit and broadband for all, to make our city more resilient against the impacts of climate change, and to invest in neighborhoods and communities that have been too often left behind by federal, state, and local officials. In May of last year, I was proud to participate in an effort with my mayoral colleagues around the country and senior congressional leaders at the U.S. Capitol to kick off our push for a sweeping federal infrastructure law. After months of effort by America's mayors and a broad bipartisan congressional coalition, including Congressman Emanuel Cleaver and Senator Roy Blunt, I was proud to represent Kansas City at the White House during the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act signing ceremony. And I know we were all proud to welcome President Joe Biden to Kansas City this past December, both to highlight the progress we've already made and to talk about the important work still to be done as it relates to infrastructure. I'm very pleased to share that with this enhanced federal funding, Kansas City will continue to invest in improving our infrastructure and basic services. Included in this year's budget is funding to expand trash cleanup services, allocating $5 million more annually to these services, which will allow us to more quickly address illegal dumping and to respond to requests for bulky item pickup in your neighborhood. We've invested in expanded efforts to the tune of $3.5 million to address dangerous buildings and to address empty lots that are nuisances throughout too much of Kansas City. And we'll plan to repave over 300 miles of streets in the next year. Kansas City has also just launched Rebuild KC, a $15 million request for proposals that will fund neighborhood and community improvement projects citywide. Because neighborhoods, more than government, know exactly what they need and the organizations they want to work with to accomplish these goals. Rebuild KC applications remain open through the end of this month. I encourage all to submit ideas at kcmo.gov or by calling 311. As we rebuild the infrastructure of our community, we recognize our social infrastructure, housing and community support, is as important as ever for thousands of Kansas Cityans. Having known housing struggles in my own life, I am proud that Kansas City City Council and I have done more this past year to bolster safe and affordable housing opportunities than any year ever before. I remember like it was yesterday, having times in my youth when we needed to pack quickly to move, when we lived in a place where core utilities didn't work, when we found temporary space in a motel, or snuck in for a while at a nursing home, and when I hoped and prayed things would change. Unfortunately, too many Kansas Cityans know stories like those or worse. Life on our streets without the support to improve their lives. Given our numerous challenges, heightened by the COVID-19 pandemic, the city has funded the Kansas City Housing Trust Fund, which will create more housing opportunities and preserve older homes throughout the city. the City Council has passed Kansas City's first ever tenants' right to counsel, guaranteeing that any Kansas Citian, regardless of income, can have representation in housing court when they need it. And we've expanded critical programming like supportive services and emergency rental assistance to keep people in their homes and prevent eviction and displacement. Last year, the City Council also voted to create a Kansas City Housing and Community Development Department, where we're investing in our capacity to prevent and address homelessness with new positions focused on tenant advocacy, houseless prevention, and affordable housing creation. Last week, we also announced Judge Jane Brown, my office's former legal counsel, as our new acting housing director. Judge Brown, a longtime Northlander and former judge and prosecutor in Clay County, wrote the book on landlord-tenant law in Missouri and has had a significant role in drafting all housing policy coming out of my office for the past 2.5 years. Judge Brown will lead the new housing department in advocating for more federal and state funding opportunities to bolster affordable housing development and in dispersing housing trust fund allocations to projects committed to meeting the city's affordable housing goals. Our goals have included hiring of Kansas City's first ever houselessness prevention coordinator, $12.5 million in additional funding to the Housing Trust Fund, $2.5 million to stand up our Tenants' Right to Counsel program, and millions more for rental and utility assistance for Kansas Cityans. Through these efforts and more, Kansas City has set the stage for transformative investments in affordable housing across our city. And now, we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to change the housing landscape in Kansas City to ensure that no one has to wonder if they'll have a roof to sleep under at night. From once unheard-of progress in Kansas City's ability to plow our roads or fix our streets this year, to generational change in how we pay our workers and support our public schools and our teachers, we have seen not only that change must happen, but transformative change can and has happened. That's why when discussing public safety and our unconscionably high rate of homicides and non-fatal shootings, I know that a change is going to come. Due to the work of many, including the Kansas City Police Department, our county prosecutors' offices, and violence prevention efforts, we saw a decrease in our homicide numbers from 2020 to 2021. A decline eclipsed only by St. Louis among big cities, and bucking a trend seen in other major cities across the country. But this year already, our community has lost 15 of our sisters and brothers to homicide. The answers here are not simple and extend beyond the talking points too often used by outstate politicians here in Missouri and beyond to discuss crime in America's cities. I have promised before and recommit today that every life in our city is special, and I will never stop in seeking every solution possible to save the lives of so many people, particularly young people, slaughtered in our streets. In violence reduction, the Kansas City Police Department plays a key and central role. I do not now, nor have I ever, believed in abolishing the police or defunding the police, but I do believe in accountability to ensure the civilian police commissioners appointed by Governor Mike Parson invest in proven crime-fighting strategies, pay our officers and their families fair wages, and see the department is responsive not to Jefferson City political interests, but to our residents, our taxpayers, our young people, who know the crime on our streets all too well. In a decision last fall, a Jackson County judge advised the city that any budgeting changes in policing, including a pair of ordinances that together would have increased the KCPD budget, must be made at city budget adoption time. We are at that time, and the budget proposal to be released tomorrow adopts the following on the police budget. The budget provides for roughly $42 million in additional funding for the Kansas City Police Department above the state-mandated 20% of the city budget. Based on discussions between myself and the Board of Police Commissioners, the extra $42 million will go towards community policing and prevention services and will include the following expenditure categories. Funding to hire roughly 150 new Kansas City police officers over the year ahead. Funding for pay raises for all officers and staff. $12.4 million in the Violent Crimes Division to fund officers and staff in the Special Victims, Domestic Violence, Sex Crimes, Homicide, Robbery, and Assault units to address violent crime and offer resources to the victims and families it affects. $6.6 million to fund the Communications Unit and increase pay for those that take our 911 emergency calls so that Kansas Cityans will not have to wait on hold when calling 911. Enhanced funding for community policing, including the Westside Community Action Network, community interaction officers, and other dedicated patrol and outreach officers. Kansas Cityans want to know their police officers, want to see them in the community, and our officers need more support and more staff to be able to do so. The budget as proposed supports the areas our community members frequently mention as the greatest needs from the department, including the hiring of more officers. But it also allows you, our taxpayers, to see where our tax dollars are going. A collaborative path between the city, our department under the leadership of our next police chief, and our community leaders from this, and hopefully 4 future budget cycles. I have no doubt that state leaders with little knowledge of, but great interest in Kansas City will continue to attempt to divide our community on policing to advance their own political gain. But I know those of us who live here each day, grieve with families impacted by shootings, and walk communities affected for generations by gun violence, want to see peace. Your elected leaders in Kansas City do as well, and will work nonstop until we get it. And law enforcement alone cannot solve our crime problem. That's why last week I was glad to see the announcement of Kansas City's new health director, Dr. Marvia Jones, who has spent her career focused on violent crime and mental and behavioral health. As our health director, Dr. Jones will help accelerate the city's ongoing efforts to build a healthier and safer community, recognizing that public safety and gun violence are among the leading health concerns in our city. This year's budget reflects a significant investment in violence intervention, including more funding for the expansion of Aim for Peace, a conflict resolution organization who will be able to use this funding to bolster focus areas and revive its street outreach team, helping to intervene in crime and de-escalate potential retaliatory actions. With this increased city investment, Aim for Peace outreach staff will be able to respond to a higher volume of gunshot and violence-related trauma situations to reach community members that are at risk of being involved in future violence. Aim for Peace also counsels survivors and families affected by violence to promote the hope and healing our city so desperately needs. We will invest in our young people, increasing our financial investment into community-based violence prevention and intervention initiatives that get to the root causes of crime. I recently had the opportunity to attend a session of Becoming a Man, also known as BAM, at Ruskin High School. BAM is a proven school-based trauma-informed counseling and clinical mentoring program that seeks to change the life paths of students in grades 6 through 12 who've been exposed to cycles of intergenerational poverty, violence, and trauma. This year, BAM and its sister organization Working on Womanhood, or WOW, will receive increased funding to expand into more school districts, service more of Kansas City's youth, and continue to provide a positive space for healthy conflict resolution. While at Ruskin, I talked to a boy, probably 15 years old, who mentioned how glad he was to have seen his father recently. That stuck with me. I've never met my father, but had a son of my own this last year. I think often that the greatest thing we can do in government is not some magic solution to all that ails us in society, but to support people where they are, to give that father some extra pay so he can take care of his family, to help another parent rebuild their life with safe and stable housing, to help a returning citizen start a business or get an education, to pick up trash in the neighborhood so folks know the city respects them, or to help that young man walk his neighborhood without fear. Kansas City is a remarkable place that will be made even stronger if we think of that fundamental basic in life, helping put a smile on a child's face. Over the next year, I hope our city's work has even a small role in doing just that. May God bless you, and may God bless our great city.